Alrighty, what's up guys? Single Player Nacho here. Quite a show for you today, so make sure you get your tissues, anything that helps you not cry, because get ready. These are tragic details behind the backstories of Dead by Daylight killers. The little snaps that make everyday life hell for these people ended up making them pick up a knife or a crane thing and bludgeoning many others to death. Not just because, there's reasons behind bloodshed. Then again, some of these are just evil, dreadful spirits. Just like this evil sculpture made out of the mold of the devil himself, the Doctor. Now, why does this monster have his eyes and mouth gaped open? The easy explanation, of course, is that this guy is simply insane. I'm surprised he isn't full-blown naked when he's doing these procedures. But what the Doctor's wearing is called electroconvulsive headgear. Now, this headgear is usually placed on patients, not the doctors or surgeons themselves. The Doctor is literally numbing himself with shocks, and this is what makes him so relentless when it comes to analyzing the human body and his victims. The ECT headgear also allows him to stay awake longer for, more and more violent shifts. Herman is a hard worker, and his victims not only suffered horrible electroconvulsive treatments that left them in a catatonic state. This headgear was also used to connect Herman to his victims. Not only was he in control in a physical form, this was also mental. All those violent, raging, insane thoughts passed through to those poor, suffering victims. Yes, some of them were criminals, but still, the Doctor's victims' last thoughts weren't even theirs. They were given the thoughts of the Doctor himself. Well, this one is a pretty gross one, and it belongs to none other than the clown. Specifically, the clown's finger abuse obsession. Yes, there's always a story behind why certain fetishes happen. The clown happens to have a finger obsession. It's very vile and creepy. He savors them. The size, the fingertips, the nails, the dirt between them, everything. He loves fingers. He's the finger guy, which sounds pretty gross. And this is all passed down through the clown's childhood. You see, the clown grew up only with his father. His mother died giving birth to him, so that built up a lot of resentment, sadly. The clown's father, before abusing him, would shake his finger directly in his face, shouting obscenities and stuff you wouldn't even say to your worst enemy. Just putrid. And disgustingly enough, the clown still fantasized about his own father's finger. Yuck. Who do we have next? The Legion, of course. Now, what could possibly be tragic about these four twerps? This detail isn't about them specifically, but rather their first victim. The reason the Legion started killing was over a chocolate bar. These pricks. Yeah, the Legion were rebellious youth with anarchist, destructive feelings towards society and normies. So they created a cult. They'd put up stop signs in order to cause accidents, which they actually successfully did. A bunch of injuries thanks to them. But what pushed them over the edge? What made them kill and taste blood for the first time? The Legion's Joey was accused by his store manager of stealing that chocolate bar, and he was fired for it. So Joey went crying back to his nincompoop Legion followers and decided to stab the store manager to death over a delicious, delectable, very tragic. And this was, of course, their first kill. Moving on to the goddess herself, the Plague, who sadly continues to pray for her long dead people. Now, this fact alone definitely took some historical accuracy and research, but as we all know, the Plague speaks some kind of ancient mumbo-jumbo. It's actually Akkadian/Sumerian, a mix between the two. But what does she actually say? She says, and I quote, and this is gonna be horrible, Adinaka dingir, asapu, me, which basically means attention god, exercise, cure the sea. The Plague says this while she's killing any of the survivors during the Mori animation. using the Dead by Daylight survivors as a sort of sacrifice to rid her people, the plague that absolutely annihilated them. So it's a somewhat tragic thought that the plague is still keeping in her mind the long-lost generation of her people that succumbed to her plague. Boils riddled their face, and they slowly melted away. But still, Adiris pays tribute to her people. Next up, we have the loving embrace of elderly people. The hag, who was mutilated by her own grandmother. That's sick. The hag's lore doesn't obviously state who participated in the rituals that transformed her into the monstrosity we see here today, the hag. During this ritual, she was tortured heavily. Her skin was peeled off. It's very gross. And taking a look at her tome in the archives, there's a few tidbits spoken by her grandmother. She's actually warning Lisa Sherwood, the hag, about the troubles around witchcraft. But that's the only mention of her grandmother. And she seems like a pretty endearing figure. But when you take a look at this item known as Grandma's Heart, the description states the cold heart of the cannibal village elder. The elder. So if you go back to the original lore, it states, amid rotting corpses and disconnected flesh, the elder's charms were scrawled in blood on the floor. Meaning the hag's grandmother definitely died. Obviously we have her heart. And the quote states, bring me another slice of the girl. Grandma. Jesus Christ. The girl, of course, being the hag. Pretty messed up. Moving on to a less malevolent killer, maybe, is the Trapper. Now, why does the Trapper use a mask? First of all, what the hell even is it? The material looks like it's made out of bone. It could have been carved out of some animal and then sculpted into a noseless, teeth-bearing monstrosity. You've probably seen the Trapper unmasked, and he's not exactly a handsome fellow. I'm sorry, Trapper mains, please write hate comments. But is there something possibly in the lore of the Trapper that helps us understand why he wears a mask? Well, Evan McMillan, as he used to be known as, was pretty obviously hated by his father, Archie McMillan, who owned the McMillan Estate, a mining company. And the Trapper's father ruled this company with an iron fist. I'm talking workplace abuse up the ass. The Trapper's father not only beat his employees to a bloody pulp, he also beat up Evan to a bloody pulp, his own son. It's messed up. The Trapper's tome section makes it seem as though there are very harsh feelings towards his own father. He's gonna get him, he's gonna kill him at some point, he's planning it out. He absolutely hates his father. But there's a little section that mentions Evan's mother, who died in a suspicious drowning accident when the Trapper was very young. The description states his mother, she was beautiful, blonde hair, blue eyes, fun, full of compassion. His opposite. The tome is drawing a gigantic disconnect between the Trapper's father and his long-dead mother. Could it be that he wears a mask to further disassociate from his father's abusive legacy, or as a tribute to not disparage his late mother? That's pretty sad. Of course, trauma that the Trapper endured when he was little could have affected his identity, leading into the need to wear a mask when he's out hunting and trapping people. Next up, we have the Spirit, who really is an innocent, well, spirit, caught up in a vengeful, hateful bloodline. Unfortunately, the Spirit's father was possessed by the Oni. Of course, this was that fateful night that Rin Yamaoka, the Spirit, arrived to her home, where she found bits and pieces of her mother, the murderer being her father. Now, here's the unfortunate detail. Her limbs were clean cut, tangled up in an unnatural position. Her breasts were sliced up, revealing her ribcage, which was cracked open. Now, I know what you're thinking, that's extremely, almost unnecessarily violent. But the lore makes a big point out of the fact that these were very technical cuts akin to someone that's been doing it for a very long time. Not someone like Rin's father, who wasn't a swordsman. No, far from it. This was definitely the work of the Oni, and Rin's mother was so defenseless due to her illness. Makes it 10 times, a million times sadder. Like, seriously, it couldn't have just been one stab. It was a complete destruction of someone's body, almost as if the Oni was physically there and not just spiritually. And that's a pun to brighten things up. Well, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe if you did, and comment down below what you felt was the most tragic detail of all of the killers, and I'm sure there's more. So if you'd like to see a part 2, let me know down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And again, thank you so much for all the support. Have an awesome rest of your day, and as always, stay single.